you will be taken to a castle known as the scariest and most haunted castle in Ireland. Telling a story, this is Leap Castle, where the blood of blood still roams in the form of a soul. Chapel of the Blood and the Presence of God. Leap Castle near Kinney, a small town in Ireland, Ubustit. Its history is so full of darkness, brutality, and treachery that it is often referred to as the world's. It is called the most haunted fort. Hundreds of years old horror is hidden behind every stone of this fort. Blood-scent history. Chapel of Betrayal. Leap Castle was originally the chief of the O'Carroll tribe. Castle, one of the most powerful and violent families in Irish history. The most dangerous place in the fort is the Bloody Chapel. After the death of the head of the tribe in 1532, the struggle for family power begins. Two brothers, rival priests, confront each other while praying in the castle's chapel. One of them, who was a priest, killed his other brother with a sharp sword, just as Holy Badir in front. At that time, blood stains were smeared on the stone floor of the chapel in such a way that even today the stain is visible. After this brutal murder, the chapel was named the Chapel of Blood. On the ground floor of the castle was a small, dark chamber with a dark hole or oubliette. This was a pit for throwing prisoners, where sharp sticks or wooden rods were placed. The conversation throws suspicious enemies, traitors, or prisoners into this pit. Those who do not die slowly move there and die. From this hole inside the fort came a strong smell of rotten meat. All this brutality led to numerous violent deaths in Castle, many of which took place within the castle, gave birth to an unsatisfied soul. Main ghost of Castle. The hauntings of Leap Castle are exceptionally active and diverse. Many types of spirits are believed to reside here. The Red Lady. This woman is the most viewed soul. She is seen roaming in the hallway of the fort wearing red clothes. He roared with a long blade in his hand. It is believed that she was raped and murdered by someone from the Walkar tribe. He often tries to attack living people with that knife. The most terrifying spirit in the castle is an angelic or elemental, a non-human force, which gets strength only from fear. This power manifests itself in the form of a curled-up, huge black sheep. When it appears, a strong, foul smell of sulfur spreads all around, and the temperature decreases drastically. This effulgence was originally created by the terrible force of decomposition of the dead bodies present in that pit. Have to believe. Even today, the ghost of that treacherous priest can be seen in the Chapel of Blood. He is often seen moving away from the altar. Visitors claim that as soon as they enter the chapel, the temperature drops considerably, and their hearing, a whisper, comes out to say something, but it is not clear. Current experience. The Leap Castle is currently preserved after a change of ownership, and it is occasionally opened for tourists. The owners themselves have become victims of these ghostly activities. They are beside their bed at night, hear the sound of breathing. Pushed by an invisible force in the hallway of the castle. The most dreadful thing is the foul smell which still emanates from the area of the hole in the fort at times. Come out. Leap Castle is still one of the most feared castles in Europe due to its history of violence and death. Has become one of the places. Secrets of the Cassina family of Italy. Cassina family in the north of Italy, near the city of Turin, 1930s, lived an apparently normal life. The family included old mother Antonia, her daughter Rita, and Rita's two brothers. But in December 1936, something started happening in his house, which soon became known as Italy. It created a stir in the newspapers and kept investigators awake at night. Invisible voice. First, strange phenomena begin to occur in the house. The furniture moves on its own, and the sound of strong knocking was heard on the wall. But the most unusual incident was the hearing of an invisible man's voice. The voiced person introduced himself as George. At the beginning, Giorgio's voice was calm and humorous. He would ask various questions to the family members, make fun of them, and hide in the house. Give correct information about goods. George's voice was so clear that whenever he spoke, everyone present could hear him clearly. A crowd of police, priests, psychologists, and media persons gathered at the house. Everyone was shocked to hear the voice of George because no physical source could be found for it. Not going. The investigators questioned Giorgio in different languages, e.g., Latin, German, and he clearly replied in Italian, which proved that this was not a man-made event. No expert can imitate George's voice, because it is sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes childish, sometimes speaking in a deep man's voice. Within a few days, George's behavior began to change. His voice became malicious and aggressive. He began to exercise direct authority over the Cassina family. Giorgio doesn't just make stuff. He started attacking people sitting inside the house directly. Rita Cassina and her mother often get pushed by an invisible force or something happens to them. Would have been thrown. The most terrifying thing happens when George's voice demands that he leave the house, but he, Rita, will take Cassinar's body as shelter. Giorgio's voice begins to threaten Rita, screaming her name and physically assaulting her. Give trouble. Mysterious dark spots are seen on Rita Cassinar's body, and she often twitches. Become ignorant of the situation. Scientific failure. The Italian government took this incident as a serious problem, and strict investigation begins. Military engineers and paranormal experts conducted research in the mansion for months after months. The room is completely surrounded with microphones and recording equipment, but the voice, it was not possible to identify through the device where it was coming from. It's in other family members are subjected to mental and physical tests, but no evidence of illusion or hallucination was found. Everyone agreed the voice was coming, but it had no physical source. Giorgio's voice tormented the Cassina family for almost 2 years. In 1938, just as suddenly, Giorgio's voice became completely silent. This incident is still an unknown mystery in Italy. Is this some powerful poltergeist, some alien force, or some other unknown supernatural being? The investigators have not been able to reach any conclusion on the matter till date. Now I will tell you a story that is known as one of the most deadly and violent ghostly incidents in Britain. This is the story of the Black Monk, or Black Monk of Pontefract, Yorkshire, England. The Black Monk of Pontefract, the Pritchard family haunting. The year is 1966. 54 Askins Passage was an ordinary house in the town of Pontefract, northern England. The Pritchard family lived in that house. Joe Pritchard, his wife Jean, and their 2 children, Philip and 13-year-old daughter, Diane. The most terrible and long-lasting poltergeist attack in British history began around this family. The first signs and names. At first, the incidents were small and strange. The family often noticed that there was a small amount of water on the floor of the house, which no one could find out where it was coming from. Then the sounds began. The kitchen table and chairs in the house changed places by themselves with a loud noise. From every floor of the house, especially the ground floor, came the sound of someone hitting the walls with a huge hammer. A strong cold wind would blow through the house, which would not stop even if the doors and windows were closed. Soon, the attacks began to focus on the youngest member of the family, 13-year-old Diane. The paranormal activities increased in Diane's presence. The Pritchard family jokingly named this force Freddy. Attacks and physical violence. The poltergeist's activity quickly turned from fun to extreme fear. Freddy did not limit himself to moving objects or making noises. He began to physically attack. Flying objects, heavy cupboards would fall off the walls, and books would fly off shelves and hit family members. Diane often complained that someone had pushed her hard from behind or slapped her, even though no one was there. She had bruises all over her body. One evening, Diane was alone in her bedroom when an invisible hand grabbed her by the throat. After this terrifying incident, a clear red mark appeared on her throat. At one point, this evil force became so strong that the members of the house themselves began to float in the air in the house and invisibly fell down the stairs. The revelation of the Black Monk. When investigators came to help the Pritchard family, the true identity of this force was revealed. To paranormal researchers, the Pritchard family members described that they often saw a large shadow figure wearing a long black robe, which followed Diane. The shadow figure's eyes were red and glowing. Researching history revealed that in ancient times, this house was part of a Cluniac monastery, and according to legend, a black-robed monk of that monastery, the Black Monk, committed suicide on this land after committing a serious crime. The insatiable spirit of this monk, now known as the Black Monk of Pontefract, is seeking to make Diane his prey. A long and violent ending. Unlike other hauntings, this attack did not end in a few weeks or months. For about 12 years, until the mid-1970s, the mansion was occupied by the Black Monk. Years after the house was abandoned, when new tenants arrived, they would find the same phenomena repeated. Heavy breathing in the dark, the sound of strange religious chanting, and the touch of cold hands. The story of the Black Monk is still documented as one of the most violent and long-lasting poltergeist cases in the history of the UK's paranormal. Many investigators believe that the teenage Diane was essentially a life support, keeping the monk's spirit in the house. This mansion is known as one of the most haunted places in America, as it witnessed the suicide of 4 members of a wealthy family and a terrible curse. The Curse of the Millionaire and Suicide Row. The famous Lamp Mansion in St. Louis was once the home of one of the most successful and wealthy families in America, the Lamp family. They owned a vast beer brewing empire. Built in the 1860s, the mansion is now a restaurant and haunted attraction, carrying a curse that has been passed down for 4 generations. The curse begins 1866 to 1904. The Lamp family curse began with William J. Lamp Sr. He hid his illegitimate child, Frederick, who had Down syndrome. The child was kept hidden from the public eye and locked in a room in the attic of the mansion. The tragic fate of this child, death at a young age, and the guilt of hiding his existence are believed to be the first curse of the mansion. But the real tragedy came when William's favorite son, William Lamp Jr., who led the family business, died suddenly in 1901. Overwhelmed by grief, in 1904, William Lamp Sr. committed suicide by shooting himself in the head in his 3rd-floor bedroom of his mansion. Suicide streak 1904 to 1949. After their father's death, the lives of his remaining children also turned into a dark tragedy. William's daughter Elsa, who often suffered from depression, committed suicide by shooting herself in the chest at her home in 1920. At just 38 years old, she was the second person in the Lamp family to take her own life voluntarily. After losing the family business and seeing her personal life in turmoil, William Jr. committed suicide by similarly shooting himself in the head in his own office at the mansion in 1922. This was the second suicide inside the same mansion. Charles was the most reclusive member of the family. In 1949, he shot his beloved pet dog and then committed suicide in the same room as William Sr., using the same method. Before he died, he wrote a note to his attendants which read, "If you find me, close the door." Ghostly presence. The Lamp Mansion is now a terrifying paranormal hotspot. Employees and visitors have experienced the presence of the Lamp family's ghosts in the mansion for many years. The Hidden Boy. The ghost of Frederick, known as the Hidden Boy, who was kept in the attic room, is often seen. Employees and children can hear his soft cries and sounds of playing in the room. Charles Lamp's bedroom is the most haunted. It feels extremely cold, and many visitors have reported invisible knocking. The sounds of his pet dog's pain can still be heard in the walls of the mansion. The ghost of William Jr. has been seen walking towards his office. Employees claim that kitchen utensils are moved at night and doors open automatically, indicating the restlessness of his restless spirit. Many believe that due to a generation of suppressed family secrets, tragic deaths and depression, every room in the Lamp Mansion is now haunted by the ghost of one or another suicide victim of the Lamp family. How did you like this historical horror story? Comment me. Parentheses. In 1972, Jack and Janet Smurfs moved into a modest two-family home on Chase Street in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. They were a very religious and ordinary American family. Jack, Janet, their 4 daughters, and Jack's parents, who lived on the other side of the duplex. They had no idea that a deadly malevolent force had been lurking in their new home for so long. The slow attack of evil. The haunting began very subtly, with the usual paranormal signs. They would hear footsteps on the stairs and voiceless whispers, indistinct, low-pitched voices that seemed to follow them from room to room. Even more terrifying was the sudden, unbearable, nauseating stench that would permeate the entire house, like rotting meat or burning garbage, before the source could be found. They saw dark, shadowy shapes moving rapidly in their line of sight. Heavy objects would fly from one end of the room to the other without human touch. Physical and sexual assault. The demonic attacks sometimes went beyond the realm of ordinary paranormal activity. What the family believed, a demon, began to take terrifying physical control. Jack Small was sleeping when he felt a sharp, icy cold. He was then thrown out of bed with a thud. The blankets on him tore off. He floated through the air, and he left the room. Attack on Janet. The most horrific incident was the alleged sexual assault. Janet Small said that an invisible force would repeatedly attack her while her husband was sleeping or out. She described the presence as rough and terrifying, and the attacks left bruises on her body. The family once heard a deep, husky voice from the basement, clearly calling their names. The voice was often preceded by a high-pitched squeal or grunt like a pig. Priests and public controversy. The Smurls were devout Catholics, so they eventually sought the help of the church. The local bishop authorized several exorcisms in 1974. The priests who came also witnessed many miraculous events with their own eyes. Chairs and objects would move violently before their eyes. They would feel an intense cold and hear strange, sickening sounds. One priest claimed that the demon's voice spoke to him and promised that they would leave the house but would follow the family. Eventually, the story was leaked to the press, and the Smurls' paranormal experience became national news. Their home was filled with reporters, curious people, and researchers. Followers, after years of horrific torment, the Smurls made a desperate decision to leave their home. They believed that the priests had failed to exorcise the house. They then moved to a new home in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, the ghost followed them. Within weeks of moving into their new home, the same cold place, the same putrid smell, and the same horrific physical abuse began again. This proved that the evil spirit was not associated with the house, but with the family. The Smurls eventually went public with their story, hoping that publicity would drive the entity away. This incident has become one of the most documented and controversial cases of hauntings and poltergeist activity in American history.